the CPU that I mentioned earlier, Apple's A18 Pro, the one that's in the Pro 16 Pro and Pro Max, the die size, meaning its foundation size, I guess is the best way to put it in layman's terms, is only slightly bigger than the A17 Pro. So closer analysis of this A18 Pro reveals a bigger SLC cache than the A18 plus more differences. So again, as we look a little more into it, you see the schematics. We're finding out there's more of a difference than we initially thought between the A18 Pro CPU that's in the 16 Pro and Pro Max and the stock A18 CPU that's in the 16 and 16 Plus. So a die shot comparison of the A18 and A18 Pro was revealed yesterday, making it the first time that Apple's second generation 3 nanometer chipsets powering the iPhone 16 models were examined with a closer eye. Now, unfortunately, lack of identification meant that we could not decipher which component was present on which part of the two SoCs, so it's difficult to conclude the exact differences between them. But thankfully, we got a closer look at the A18 and A18 Pro, revealing their physical die size measurements and so much more. Now, let me click on this link and see if it brings up the actual photos. There's that shows a new comparison that reveals that the A18 may not be based on the A18 Pro. Both units could be entirely different architecture. That's what I'm getting at. Deeper inspection by high yield reveals that the A18 Pro has a 105 millimeter die size, while the A18 measures only 90 millimeters. So you're looking at a 105 die versus a 90 millimeter die. The bigger die allows Apple to add a larger SLC cache and an additional GPU core, which you can clearly see in the comparison. Most of you know or might not know that the bigger cache can result in improved performance, which is why in some benchmarks the A18 Pro has the upper hand despite featuring the same CPU clusters than the A18, only being separated by a single GPU core. So it does look like they are slightly more different than we initially first thought. Let me see if I can pull this photo up. Here we go. Where are we at? Here we go. So here's the picture. Is that being seen? Okay, good. So here's the picture. A18 front side die shot, A18 back side die shot. So this is in the 16 and 16 Plus and probably the SE4. Now let's look at the Pro. So here's the A18 Pro die side front shot and A18 Pro back side die shot. As you can tell, it's kind of hard to tell since I have to scroll up and down and they're not side by side. From the naked eye, it looks fairly similar, but the measurements are different, right? So could mean that one is just slightly bigger than the other and that the difference is more than just one GPU core. Because in the initial launch, that's basically what Apple was displaying and showing all of us, that the A18 Pro, obviously a Pro variant, and having one more GPU core, but that's what this report is showing us, that that's not entirely true, that one GPU core does not separate, that is not the difference between the two CPUs. One is actually sitting on a bigger foundation, right? So they're actually two separate CPUs, not just the same CPU minus one core. So that's basically, in layman's terms, what we found out this morning. So I'm going to link everything down below. So if you want to dive into it a little more in depth, you certainly can. But let's roll on here. And I got quite a few more